Yeah, as you know, somebody who hosts a podcast, me who does speaking events, I'm always hoping it just hits with one person, or even part of it just hits with one person, because I know how it is when I'm listening to podcasts or when I'm hearing people talk. If I can just take even one nugget, I'm grateful to have heard that person talk. And I always think like, this isn't going to resonate with everybody, and not everyone, I'm not going to be everyone's vibe. I'm not even trying to be. It's all good. But maybe if one person took something away from this, I'm happy, or I feel like it was worth it.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Invictus Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is a performance coach and a mindset coach with over 18 years leading high performers to their full potential. She's also the founder and CEO of Driven Mind Training, along with a consultant for so many different fitness companies. None other than Dawn Fletcher. Welcome to the show.
So glad to be here, Bryce. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. We've had a sauna chat. We've crossed paths so many different times and talked about making this happen, and here we are.
Yeah, it's really great to be here. People always tell me, like, you and Bryce remind me so much of each other, and we really haven't connected much until more recently, so it's been great just getting to know you more.
I'm pumped about it. And before we dive in, San Diego State. They made their very first Elite Eight as of last night. How did that make you feel being an SDSU alumni?
I was so pumped. I honestly didn't think they stood a chance. I was like, I didn't even pick them in my bracket. I'm like, they're going to get their butts kicked. And yesterday, their defense was so good. They were playing so aggressive. They looked so athletic. And I was like, wait, this actually might happen. And then they had like an 18-point swing in like 3 to 5 minutes in the second half. So good. It
was cool to watch. March Madness sparks just this unique, magical feeling within sport. And even people that aren't into sport, all of a sudden it's just this cool collection of people talking about sport, at least for the month of March. And the other thing I really love is, similar to CrossFit, every team has a chance in every game. There's no like diaper dandy, I guess, is the terminology in college basketball, that like it's not possible. And we've seen so many teams that, don't seem to stand a chance all of a sudden come back. And it was very, very cool to watch last night. Their head coach, Brian Dutcher, was the assistant when I was there. Cool. And we talked briefly offline. We were there at the same time, which is so cool.
I know. You posted something in your stories last night. It was like your image, and you looked so small and so different in your jersey. And it was SDSU. And I'm like, wait, that looks a little older. That means that there was a chance that we crossed paths there. And go figure, we were both there in 2008, 2009.
Huge motivating factor for me to sneak into the strength and conditioning room a little bit more. Just 6'3", $175, soaking wet, trying to fill out the jersey to the best of my ability. And, we saw those guys last night. They look strong. They look good. And huge shout out to SDSU Strength and Conditioning.
For sure. They're doing something right.
Absolutely.
I'm pumped to see them tomorrow.
Yeah. Who are they playing tomorrow? Who are they matching up with?
Is it Creighton?
Oh, are they playing Creighton? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm bummed that they knocked off Princeton. The nerds did a really good job for the majority of March Madness this year.
Yeah, they did. And no number 1 seeds.
I know.
It's pretty impressive.
And to knock off Alabama, the number 1 seed, not just in this region, but in the entire tournament. Like, wow. That's something to walk away with. It's just super cool.
For sure.
But as we dive in today, Dawn, you're doing some really incredible things. You've coached so many high-level athletes all over the world. What I've been told about you is you just do an incredible job meeting people where they're at. And you're not just somebody that preaches it, but you truly walk the walk. I've seen it. You've gotten in that sauna and cold plunge with me out there numerous times. You get after some of these very challenging feats and endurance challenges. Where did this journey kind of start for you?
Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me to even hear that I try my best to meet people where they're at. And that's something I take very seriously and put a lot of intentionality into. It started when I was a kid. I have 2 older brothers. I'm an Army brat. We moved around a lot. We were always getting into stuff, very adventurous, a bit of a jock growing up, and just had, truly, it was 2 brothers that I wanted to keep up with because I wanted to hang out with them. So,
were they older? Or
yeah, 2 older brothers.
Okay.
So it's just like whatever they were doing, I wanted to try to do it. And at some point, I became probably fitter and more athletic than both of them. And
I bet they hated that.
That was an interesting time. And now, our paths have gotten very different, but I just always had this passion for doing hard things, activities, sports, And once I learned about mindset, sports psychology, and just the more I learned, the more I wanted to know. And I just continue to follow my passion.
That's super cool. What was the value system kind of instilled from your parents where, you had this desire to want to beat them and keep up with your brothers, but at the same time, you had a healthy relationship with failure. You weren't fearful of them picking on you or putting you down. You're like, no, if I can beat them, I can beat anybody.
I wouldn't say I wasn't fearful. I hated being put down by them. And when I was left out, I was like, oh, I'm going to try even harder to stay in with them, and keep up with them. I was very, very lucky, and I still am, to have two parents that always reminded me that I could do anything, and always supported me and helped me in my challenges and my pursuits to really go after whatever set my heart on fire. And just to have that support and that encouragement. I like to try a lot of different things. And as a kid, I was the same way, to just go out there and try it, and to, fail, get back up, see if you can keep going, or stop, pivot, choose something else and try that. And I always had that support, and I always had that encouragement, which I know helped instill some confidence in me. But I certainly wouldn't say I wasn't fearless then, and I'm not fearless now. Yeah,
that's very humble. I appreciate you sharing that. Were there any specific instances that stand out to you where you're like, I remember that one time at the park, or, I punched my brother at this one time, and that was a defining moment for me?
It was probably, we had a basketball net set up on a tree. It was nailed to a tree at the last place my dad was stationed in Pennsylvania. And we always used to play knockout. And it was always me, the young, small girl, with all of the guys and my brothers and their friends. And I remember, I don't know if it was a specific instance or not, but I remember getting to the point where I would be beating all of them. And my brothers would be like, watch out, she's going to get you. They would almost be cheering me on because they knew that I was going to win.
You got that respect.
And I remember being like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, this is pretty, I like this, And that's something that probably I carried forward with me.
That's super cool. I love hearing it. I also just love that you spent a lot of time outside, right? Like, you look at modern day living, and I chatted with a buddy about this the other day. Technology is amazing. It's a great tool, but information travels so fast now that, a lot of the negative information, especially coming from the news, is floating to the surface and living rent free in between our ears. And so, the protection principle with a lot of upbringing of children leads to them not playing outside as much. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of challenge. And I don't know, back in the day, for me at least, it was like I was outside scraping my knees, messing up my shoes, getting into trouble. Not too much, but just a little bit. And modern day, you see so many kids, video games, iPads, all those things. And I just think it's very cool with regards to the resilience and the quality characteristics that you carry within your ethos and your value system, that it stems from exploring outside and playing games and learning how to manage conflict and learning how to integrate with other people. And people management is one of the top skills for a high-level entrepreneur.
Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast. My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Two important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes to their amazing gymnastics grips, to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you.
For sure. And in some ways, we were a military family, so we did move a little bit more in my younger years. And I did get very comfortable switching schools and making new friendships and constantly having just new people around me. And again, trying to kind of keep up with my brother's friends and then, always playing on new sports teams. It was the ability then to make friendships and be empathetic and have those people skills that I don't think I realized until later in life when I looked back and was like, wow, that was actually a benefit for me.
You're adding tools to your toolbox without even noticing it.
For sure.
That's super cool. Moving at a young age is always incredibly tough.
Yep.
But it gives you that bravery and that courage when you are in the new playground or in the new classroom to then be like, you know what? I'm noticing that person has this similarity. You're already practicing the art of observational learning.
For sure.
Really trying to understand the ethos and people in different arenas, different areas. And you're like, how do I interact here? How do I connect with them? There's also something to unpack there around like, hey, I can't do this alone. You weren't like the person in the playground just by yourself in the corner. It's like, no, I'm going to actually make an effort. These are all really cool things that help me understand why you're so good at mindset coaching and connecting with brands.
That's really interesting you say some of that because I probably haven't even done that much reflection. And you brought a lot of things to my point just in the past few minutes, a lot of things to my mind in the past few minutes that are great points.
Super cool stuff. And another thing that's really popular in modern day culture, we've seen Liver King, we've seen Paul Saladino, and just really emphasizing this concept of primal living. And I think it's really apparent, especially coming off the pandemic, where so many of us spent time inside, isolated. And when I think primal living, I think getting outside, I think grounding. I think you did a really good job depicting on your Instagram, opening your arms and kind of really ready to receive coaching, love, guidance, really breathing deep, preferably nasally, trying to connect with the elements and feel the sun and the breeze and the wind and the cold, and smiling and embracing gratitude. How does primal living kind of fit within your world, and how do you use that as a tool to then connect with so many amazing athletes?
Yeah, the first part of that question, I would say I was in that boat of people that certainly during the pandemic was spending too much time on my computer, on Zooms, by myself in my house because I work remote. I work most of the time by myself through a screen. And it got to the place that even for someone like myself who loves being outside, and we live in San Diego where the sun is plentiful and we can be out all day, I was just feeling very disconnected from people and from the outdoors and the activities that I typically like to do. And knew that I needed some shifts as well to get myself peeled away from the screen and start integrating those habits again. And even in fresh new ways, just start recommitting to myself and doing some things that I know really help me feel grounded, centered, peaceful. And I think I've realized in the past few years that I need a lot of self-soothing, a lot of things that really help me get into that parasympathetic state and really help my nervous system relax. And that takes steady, consistent practice. It's, if you don't do some of those things, some of those practices that help you, even for a day or a couple of days, I can feel it instantly. I can feel a change in myself, my mood, which then impacts the way I interact with other people and this world in a way that I don't like, in a way that keeps me from showing up as the person who I want to show up as. So that's why some of those key practices of being out in the sun, doing things outside that I really love, getting in the water, being in the snow, getting in the elements, getting cold, getting hot, doing deep breathing, and then a multitude of other things that I do to really help to keep my system at ease, help me to show up better in this world. And I feel really strongly about a lot of those practices.
And you can feel it. Just your sheer presence in the numerous times that we've interacted, you carry a frequency that feels safe, that feels comfortable, and definitely, at least for me, doesn't make me feel like, oh, I need to run away. It's like, I actually want to lean in a little bit. This is super cool. And you've used the term show up a few times. And that term is thrown around a lot. Like, just show up. The rest will take care of itself. But I loved the point that you made who you show up as. These things that you do are prerequisites to get your energy and frequency in a good place so that you show up the way Dawn Fletcher wants to show up and who can better contribute and serve the world and your clients. We chat on that a little bit. It's very, very different than just showing up, because you can show up high or hungover or sleep deprived, and then you're not as much value to, whoever you're connecting with.
I love that. And thank you for that, awareness. To me, it's about showing up with intention or showing up intentionally, because you're right. You can be somewhere, but are you really there?
Yeah.
And
presence.
And who are you trying to be in this moment? Or what are you aiming to embody is how I like to think about it. So for me, I have very clear values that I center myself on every morning. And even before I do anything, like on the way here, thinking of a few values that I want to embody during this podcast. And so I'm always it's like a common thread for me to be thinking about my values and how I want to show up before each day, and then before almost everything that I do that matters to me, is bringing some of them to the forefront of my mind so that I can show up intentionally. So being loving and kind is always one of them, and being brave and courageous. Those are like my biggest two values.
I love that.
Gotta
jot that down.
If I can be loving and brave, I know that most likely the day is going to be pretty awesome, and I'm going to probably have a pretty positive impact.
That's incredible. And just to play the contrarian to that point that I made is like who you show up as, the prerequisites that lead you to that appropriate energy. We chatted briefly offline around the concept of showing up imperfect. If we wait forever to be ready, we may wait forever. We may never actually be ready. And, will you chat on that a little bit? Just once again, being brave and courageous to be like, hey, I'm going to go give my best shot, knowing that very well, it's going to be good enough to me. It may not be good enough to the external world, but it's also, once again, that healthy relationship with perceived failure or a data point in pursuing a new experience.
For sure. I was just talking about this with a mastermind group that I run a couple of nights ago about how so many of us high performers and the high achievers that I work with want to show up as our quote unquote best, which is most of the time a made-believe thing that's unattainable.
Yep.
But largely, we want to feel really proud and satisfied about how we show up, what we achieve, what we accomplish, and the path that we're on. And a lot of times, that's at war with us showing up as our authentic and aligned and very peaceful selves. And so I have to lean into that being brave value a lot, because I'm scared most of the time. I have anxiety and fear like everybody. I'm full of doubt every day. So I'm always leaning into, hey, if I can do this imperfectly or show up or get myself to try, I'm honoring my other favorite value with being adventurous.
Oh, I love that.
And bravery leads to adventure, and adventure keeps my cup really full. So I can't live this life of safety, of really only waiting, like you said, to show up till it's perfect, or going after something when I'm ready, which I'm not ever. It's leaning into being brave so I can show up and be adventurous and try things and be more comfortable doing them imperfect, which I think as a leader is one of the most attractive qualities in someone, is their willingness to show up imperfectly and be vulnerable and share their struggles. That's the kind of leader I want to follow.
I love that. I had a very unique and special coaching interaction earlier this week where life's been a little messy for me lately. And I opened up and shared that with a trusted client of mine. And then all of a sudden in return, they shared back. And I was gently curious. And I said, what made you want to share that with me? And they're like, well, you shared. So I felt like it was appropriate to share too. And then we played ping pong back and forth. And then we later negotiated actionables to improve upon, the challenges that we were embarking upon adventurously. And there's something powerful that vulnerability bleeds vulnerability. What are your thoughts on that concept? And, is that a tool that you openly use in your mastermind classes and in your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, I think that there are a lot of leaders out there, authors, speakers, people on podcasts, people that a lot of people look up to because they think that they have something that they want. And that often looks like success, achievement, accomplishment, money, and something that may be a little bit more external or visible. And I think I have gotten to the place where I have enough experience. I'm almost turning 40 this year. I've learned a little bit about some of those leaders who maybe I thought of in a certain light, and realized like they're all struggling, and maybe they're not showing it. But there's things in all of our lives that we are struggling with and maybe aren't wearing it or aren't showing it as much. And I realized I actually am way more likely to follow a leader that is talking about the real stuff, the hard stuff, and still being able to maintain some hope and inner peace and doing the work and struggling through that and showing up imperfectly. I think that's just it's just something that I know I really look to in other leaders. So I've really challenged myself to show up that way as well, so that I can represent what I think is worth following.
I love that. The authenticity really allows me to follow as well. When it's too good to be true, I start to question. I get a little bit skeptical and I zoom back a little bit, and then I psychoanalyze. And I do think it's really cool. Inevitably, I talked about it briefly on an Instagram post earlier this week. You're going to have planned suffering, training, cold plunge, things that are hard, that are purposeful. But inevitably, life's going to happen to all of us. You are going to have unplanned suffering. And so what I like about some of these thought leaders is when they're open about the unplanned suffering, how life's just going to happen, they rely on their habits. And it's like, whoa, if I have habits of the primal style living, treating people appropriately, living with love and kindness, being brave and courageous, getting into the cold plunge on occasion, especially if I'm tired or lethargic or in a bad mood, or I find myself a little bit groggy. It's like doing something disruptive that's also safe can also move the needle and get us out of that downward spiral and maybe switch our trajectory to an upward spiral. What are your thoughts around, I'll use the cold as an example, but there's many other ways to kind of shift that spiraling and kind of pull us out in the midst of that unplanned suffering.
I think of it as a pattern reset, or simply as a reset. Is like you said, we're all going to get in places where things are tough and the world's coming at us, and that can lead to some unhealthy or unhelpful thought patterns, some unhealthy or unhelpful habits that we start to do. And if we can catch ourselves, and if we have great people around us that can help call us up and lift us up and say, hey, here's what we're seeing in you. We know how you want to show up. We know what your values are. What can we do here? How can we help you? And have people around you. And if you can notice that in yourself, a pattern reset throughout your day, it can be the most impactful thing. And something as quick as even going over the sink and going cold water on my face takes 5 seconds, and I can instantly feel a change. And so it's just understanding for yourself, what are a few of those things that you can do quickly in your day that you can integrate, that can help you, like you said, move towards a more positive trajectory. Yeah,
for sure. It's gentle perspective shifting. I connected a couple of years ago now with previously the fittest one-arm man in the world, Logan Aldrich.
Oh, cool.
And he said something to me that was so profound. He said, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And as painful as that is sometimes, when you actually sit with that for a moment, you're like, whoa, there's a lot to unpack there, because I've heard you chat about success before, and you mentioned the things that are external, like money and fame and notoriety and successes that are gently seen from the external world. But in my humble opinion, achievement without fulfillment isn't really success. And when I've chatted with people that I truly believe are authentically successful, they crave 2 things, 3 things really. Love being number 1, anonymity. They don't really want to be known. They want separation from the social media world, and peace. And that's both external and internal peace, knowing that they're living life on their terms. What are your thoughts on, as you've interacted and observed the world, like this concoction of success that everybody's chasing? It's more followers, more money, more things, more stuff. But in reality, it's like, it's really inside of us in some capacity.
I love everything you just said. And yeah, I think largely we are all chasing meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and the ways in which we think we'll get there look different. And I think that everyone's on their own journey for how that might look. And I'm obviously not to judge anybody's path and how they might think that they would get there. But from what I understand and some of the research that I've done, I think we're really at the core of it, first and foremost, craving safety. We're looking for safety. We're looking for belonging. We're looking to be seen, to be known, to be heard, to be loved, to be cared for, to matter at the core of all of it. From there, sure, there's going to be passions that we might chase or ways that we might try to fulfill something that's on our hearts, like giving back in some way or helping others in some way, or even something that we'll chase because purely it excites us. Maybe it seems like a more selfish goal to those on the outside, like a CrossFit Games type of goal. But if that really sets you on fire, you pursue that hopefully all in. Mm-hmm. And so all that to say is I think that at the core of it, we all have our basic core human needs that we're hoping to get fulfilled in some way, or we're looking, or maybe we don't even know yet that we want that's what we're chasing. But at some point we'll come to realize that. And from there, then, any type of fulfillment or meaning on top of that can look like purpose. And hopefully people can reroute to that in a way that brings them that inner peace and that love and that kindness that you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much to unpack there, but the thing that really tickled my brain a little bit was the concept of giving back. You just did that. You ran a half marathon doing a push assist with Noah, who had a disability. What was that experience like? I mean, running is not, something you do every day all the time now. It's something you specifically trained for this event to give back and be a part of something that's bigger than you. What was that experience like?
That was a really cool, special experience. I've never done something like that. Most all of my athletic pursuits were for me because I wanted to do them. In high school, in college, after college, got more into some endurance stuff, and then into CrossFit, and now just generally with fitness. And to have the opportunity to say, hey, there's a bunch of different people that have different disabilities that are going to be in chairs, and they really want to do these athletic events or sporting events. This one was a half marathon. Would you, as an able-bodied person, be willing and able to come and push assist somebody in a chair for a half marathon?
That's so cool.
And my two good buddies, Brent and Kyle Pease, they own a foundation called the Kyle Pease Foundation. And it's one of my best friends. And of course, I wanted to do it in support of them. And also thought, wow, what a cool way to be able to give someone else an experience and have it with him, have it alongside someone where you're running together the entire 13 miles. Mm-hmm. I would not train for a half marathon or a marathon on my own for myself at this point in my life. It's just not what I want to do.
Yep.
Other things excite me a lot more, and running doesn't feel great on my body anymore. But I took I think only like 3 months and just trained a couple of times a week so that I could prepare myself to, at the very least, be able to go out there and have a comfortable, fun experience. And it was really unique and incredibly special. I had tears in my eyes most of the race and just really, really soaked it up and enjoyed it in a different way, and hopefully gave Noah and the other athletes an amazing experience to be out there.
That's so cool. And that's truly living. That's not just existing. That's putting yourself out there, doing something gently uncomfortable for a bigger purpose.
This episode is brought to you by HVMN, Health via Modern Nutrition. They launched the world's first ketone drink in 2017, and then in 2022 launched the version 2 of their exogenous ketone product line called Ketone IQ. I found that incorporating ketones into my morning routine increased my daily focus and energy. The beauty of this product is that you can stack it. It doesn't even have to replace your morning routine. My morning routine looks like taking the dog on a walk, hitting my daily shot of Ketone IQ, hopping in the cold plunge, and then finishing it off with a nice Trident coffee while I soak up some morning sunlight. Try out some ketones for yourself by using the code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Ketones are a super efficient fuel for your brain that leaves you feeling energized and clear-headed. Give it a shot. I promise you won't regret it. Once again, use code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Move fast and break shit. This is one of the core values at LSKD and something that we fully resonate with here at the Invictus Mindset Podcast. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. Through my experiences with LSKD products and their team members, I have found a brand that I can call home that keeps me performing at my highest level through fitness and business. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer, so I can go from training at the gym directly to meetings, client consults, running errands, or preparing for podcasts. The LSKB vibe has finally reached San Diego, and we want you to experience it too. Go to us.lskd.co to start shopping today. We want to inspire you to chase the vibe.
And I pulled it off your Instagram, but you have this amazing post about training with purpose. And you mentioned, hey, I don't really want to do a 13 or 26.2 mile race anymore, but training with purpose matters. And there was a few points that you made, which is getting or following a coach or program, signing up for an event, which is what you did. And then, sharing your goals in your training publicly or with friends and family, kind of in crossing paths. And then lastly, choosing goals that really light you on fire and that it really align with your value system and who Dawn Fletcher wants to be. Mm-hmm. Those 4 points are really strong. And hopefully, people listening will note take a little bit there, because it's a great way to ignite your fire in pursuit of gently improving on the day-to-day. But having something gently in the distance that you can pursue, having somebody to hold you accountable, being a coach or a program. What I love about what you're doing, Dawn, it's so easy to say the cliche term mindset coaching and throwing all kinds of cute quotes around, but you do such a great job creating structure. And this is a prime example of that. When you started the mindset coaching and started personally living it and then authentically sharing it with the world, how did you develop structure and processes and procedures to make them digestible for people in pursuit?
Wow, that's a crazy question. I don't know if I did. When I started this whole thing, it was a blog when blogging was cool. That gives you an idea of how long ago that was, in like 2000.
Humbly, I still think blogging's cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did too, but in 2010 or 11, the thing was create a blog.
Yeah.
That's what, the way to do it. And
Yeah.
I just thought, I have a lot of information and a lot of tips that have helped me and that I have seen helped the clients or the athletes I had worked with up to that point. Let's just try putting out a mini blog every day for a year. Every day, publish, push publish. And sometimes this would take me 5 minutes to write, and sometimes it would take me, hours in the day. I'd keep coming back to it. But I just thought, what if I can publish one piece of valuable or semi-valuable information every day for a year and just see what happens?
Wow. That's such amazing consistency. It doesn't sound hard when you say it, but the actionable associated with that, to sit down, put in the work, you versus the keyboard, that's tough.
I agree. Looking back on it, I knew that was something that would, like we were talking about earlier, make me show up imperfectly. Because if I just said, I'll just publish when I feel like it or when I have material, I probably would have published once a month.
There's no deadline.
There's no way I would have done it. But I was like, if I'm really going to see if I can create my own business based on this passion I have for mindset and, at the time, really CrossFit and sport, strength and conditioning, let's see if I can just publish a piece every day. And I didn't have a bank I was pulling from. This was like creating a new post every day. But as I started to do that, and I did that over the course then of 3-4 years, not every day, but then 5 days a week or 3 days a week, and kind of fell off from there, is I started to categorize them into, okay, this is more about goals or focus, motivation, purpose, all of the different categories that I started to find were more important. And then that gave me enough material to say, okay, I can publish ebooks. I can create this into a program. I can actually run a business off of these tips if I can create some of those ways to make money online. So that's when I really started to realize that I could make this into a business, as long as, again, I kept my passion high for it. And that came with, some boundaries and some shifts over the years. And now it's like 17, 18 years later, I really am still getting to do what I love. It looks different for sure, and it has continued to change and evolve over the last 2 decades. But it all started off with just put something out there every day.
That's cool. It's so brave and courageous too, because at that time it was new, it was unique. You didn't know what the comments were going to say. You didn't know what kind of pushback you were going to say. And I think Men's Health and Men's Fitness were really big at the time, and they were great at like, according to this study or according to this, research. And you're like, oh man, like I don't know if this has correlational data. And now we've come to realize there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And they're just it's so cool to see how things have evolved over time. And I probably say it too much on this podcast, but I can't help it that writing fills the gaps within our thinking.
Yeah.
And the fact that you made the time to sit down and write, just leads to my next question around journaling. Do you have, maybe 2 or 3 prompts that you use consistently with your clients to help them explore and reflect themselves and their why to develop, as you mentioned before, a little bit more meaning for why they do the hard things?
For sure. One of the first things I do with anybody is, what characteristic traits are most important for me to embody? And that's just that's a way you can set your values. If you had to only choose 3 or 5 characteristic traits or adjectives, who would you want to say that you want Bryce to be? How do you want to, again, show up? What is most important for you to embody in your day-to-day life? And that helps give somebody, I think it all starts there. It all starts with our values, because then every decision you make, you can filter back through. Is this helping me be more of the person I want to be or not? And it just makes in a lot of ways, our lives easier.
It minimizes distraction too.
Yeah, it's just like there's a lot coming at us all the time. And so that's one thing that I use for each person I'm working with towards the beginning of our relationship, is just help them establish what matters to them and who they want to be. And then on more of maybe a day-to-day level, you might just think when you're journaling, what am I feeling right now? And that helps you build your emotional intelligence. You might even look at an emotions list and try to describe and understand, how am I feeling? And what does this look like? How does this show up for me? And then another question you could ask yourself is, what do I need? What do I need right now? What do I need today? And that's a way to check in with yourself and get very clear about, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I could use.
I really love that. It helps people better grasp and understand their feelings and emotions as well, and not get lost or do a cannonball into a pool of emotions. LMNT, pronounced element, is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means a science-backed electrolyte ratio with none of the junk. No sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and most importantly, no BS. Whether it's after a long workout, hot yoga, or an intense sauna and ice session, I've been using Element to keep me hydrated and replenishing all of my lost electrolytes. So many of us wake up chronically fatigued, and the antidote to this is salt water. Salt has previously been blamed for blood pressure issues, but new research shows that replenishing salt and electrolytes can lead to more energy, no headaches, a clear mind, and enhanced focus. Use the link drinklmnt.com/invictusmindset to make any purchase of Element, and you will receive a free sample pack with all of the Element flavors. Once again, that's drinklmnt.com/invictusmindset. I think it's really healthy too to label them, maybe with a phrase or a word, because then it allows you to create some distance from it. You get like a bird's eye view on like, I'm feeling this way because of this, and I'm categorizing it as this. Yeah. And now you can orient yourself around said emotion related to said topic, as opposed to like just sitting in there and allowing it to like beat the crap out of you.
Exactly. And you always realize there's always an option.
Ooh,
like no
like
matter
that.
what I'm feeling, any way you're feeling, or all the ways you're feeling, there's always an option. Like, what do I need right now? And I would argue most of the time it's to sit and feel it first.
Yeah.
And allow it and accept it, surrender to it. And then from there we can choose, like we were talking about earlier, some of those practices that might support how we're feeling in a healthy way.
I love that you said that, just because modern day, what do you want? Oh, that doesn't feel good. I want to run away. I want to deflect. I want to distract. I want to use, an altered state of consciousness in some capacity, so I don't have to practice the art of enduring that thing. But inevitably, when you do hard things, there's a lesson to be learned. How do you create buy-in around that concept? Hey, you're going to go through something. It's going to be really tough. I know you're not going to want to go through it again, but on the other side, I promise you, will be the unboxing of everything that you want.
I might use some examples or some personal stories. I might use an example from somebody else that I've worked with or coached before and just give them some more perspective. But really, when I speak about something passionately, like you just did, it's because I've experienced it myself. I don't think we can really speak passionately about something that we'd like others to do or we think is important for others until we've done it or we've seen what the downsides are of not doing it for yourself. You know, I used to have a lot more anxiety and panic attacks and insomnia, and all of those things in my life that were not good were because I wasn't in a strong, healthy way dealing with and knowing how to deal with my emotions.
Yeah, you lacked the tools which you've developed over time by doing hard things, which then gives you access to have relatable stories and metaphorical analogies that then relate to your clients and athletes.
Exactly.
That's super cool. I gotta sit with that for a second. That's super cool that you've explored all of this, but now have the structure to then digest it and share it with so many high-level athletes. And who are some of the athletes that you've kind of crossed paths with recently that I've heard such great things about the services you provide to a lot of the CrossFit Games athlete? Who are some of the ones that you've worked with?
Yeah, so I actually hung up my coaching hat in the past year. So I've moved away from most one-on-one coaching, and now I'm doing mastermind speaking, consulting.
Very cool.
But I've worked with, well over 30 CrossFit Games athletes. I mean, who I think are some of the best in the world. In multi-year games athletes like a Sam Briggs back in the day, Christy Adkins. More recently, people like an Emma Carey, Tudor Magda, the younger group.
Nice.
And a lot of other ones. But,
Such a gift to be able to motivate and inspire the next generation.
It's been cool to help people on their way out of the sport and transitioning after 8, 10 plus successful years in the sport, and then be able to help people who are coming into it in really big ways, who are so talented, and be able to be at that point where, I can switch gears depending on who I'm helping and how to best serve them. But the past couple of years, I just knew that my coaching was going to continue to evolve.
Yeah, it evolved in a different way for sure. We're definitely cut from the same cloth. I gently got goosebumps a second ago because that's actually where I wanted to take the conversation next around, okay, you have this person that you're working with that self-identifies as an athlete. They've been an athlete for over 2 decades. They've performed maybe in a collegiate sport and then transitioned into CrossFit, which is kind of how it used to work before they started as teens and evolved as they kind of are modern day. And then you get to this place where your mind kind of wants to play. It's what you've known for the last decade. It's how you've monetized and built your life and your career. The body's not quite responding as much as it used to. You're not as high up in the rankings anymore. You're not getting the same attention and validation from the coaches. Those sponsor calls kind of stop coming. And there's this identity shock that happens. And you then sit with that and you're like, whoa, am I loved for being me, or am I only loved for my function? Are people just concerned about the business acumen of this and how to use my athleticism to monetize their products and what I can do in a very small arena? Or are there transferable skills that I can potentially use in a different place, in a different business place? Can I then connect with the next generation, which Kobe's done numerous chats around, hey, what is success to him? It's, can you motivate those around you? When you're no longer present, is your presence missed?
That's
and
good.
So I threw a lot at you there, but I guess the big takeaway as far as, trying to unpack this a little bit is, when you've worked with athletes that are transitioning away from sport, where does that start and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a tough process for a lot of people, like you said, when so much of their identity and belonging is in sport. It's really how you spend your time, 6 to 8 hours a day training, and then the days you're not, or the hours you're not training, you're spent doing everything you can in your lifestyle and in your choices to support your athletic goals. So it really is a big shift because the way you spend your time will be different. And then that belonging piece of knowing that there's a lot of attention that you're getting because of your athletic accolades, whether that be from sponsorships, like you said, or coaches or social media. And the fear that, is that going to go away? Or like you said, are people going to even like me or know me if I don't have this big image that's out there? So there's a lot of conversation that goes around, like, what are your fears? What are your worries and concerns as you begin to take steps to move out of your athletic career and spend your time differently? And being able to, again, create a safe place for someone to say, like, here's what I'm freaking out about. Here's what I'm worried about. Here are the things that keep me up at night. That's a lot of where we start, is talking about the fears and worries, doubts, anxieties that they have about what that transition could look like for them or what that might mean for them. Mm-hmm. So we do start there, and then we talk about a lot, like, our values and our goals. Well, who do we want to be? How do we want to go through this next phase of our life? What do we want that to look like? And can we create some new goals or different goals for that person that can still keep them excited and passionate? It just might look different. So it takes time.
I think that's really healthy to give them some new goals that maybe have transferability from the previous goals, that maybe aren't like so big, hairy, and audacious, that are super far away and removed from their athletic goals, but maybe have similarities, to gently wean them in a slightly different path or direction. That's really cool.
For sure. And that might be moving into coaching or helping other athletes, even being a mentor for some other athletes. It might mean they have wanted to start a family, or they've wanted to do something different, but they just didn't know when, or they didn't know how that would exactly happen. So just being that sounding board for them that can really help them honor what they're experiencing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and help them navigate that based on what they desire.
Yeah, for sure. I also, just to give a little bit of pushback, I feel like this is bigger than just mindset and athleticism. I actually think it's a cultural issue. Mm-hmm. Hey, Dawn, what do you do? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, that question is at every holiday party, every get together you go to. Hey, what do you do? What do you do? So what you do then becomes a part of your identity, because you feel like you have to provide an answer that's going to provide a response that's going to generate respect. It's such an interesting thing in our world that I really think you could ask, like, hey, how are you? What excites you right now? I think those are better ways to pursue a healthy and fun conversation, because then to even take it a layer deeper, when people ask what you do, they don't even really answer to the response unless they're genuinely interested. And it's such an interesting dichotomy that I just observe humbly in the world. And I think, America, let's do better.
Let's do better. You heard it here first.
Yeah, for real. Like, I think we can do better and really practice the art. I mean, connection and bonding is one of the 9 ancestral tenets. Give a shit about other people. Yeah. And gently lean into their world for a moment. And then you can play ping pong back and forth and share your world in return. What are your thoughts on this?
I think about this a lot, obviously. I mean,
you could hear the tone of my voice get a little passionate there.
You just almost stood up in your chair.
I did.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what are some other awesome questions to ask people when you first meet them? I love, like, what excites you, or what hobbies are you interested in? Mm-hmm. What is something you have coming up that you're looking forward to? Where do you find awe and wonder and joy in this world? And someone's like, what? But that's what I care about.
Challenges them to think, though.
Yeah, of course. Like, or even some of the other side, like, what keeps you up at night, or what are some of your big worries right now? And that might evolve a little bit into the conversation, but still, it's matters of the heart and things that can, like you said, bring us closer and give us more of an intimate relationship with other people. At the very least, help create a more engaging conversation than, what do you do? This. What do you do? That. And then it's like, that's it.
Totally.
Or tell me more about that or something. And it's like, does anyone really care?
It's interesting too, because what we put into our memory really isn't what we do. It's the in-between. Mm-hmm. And I chatted with a good buddy of mine. He's the director of in-house performance for Invictus Athlete now. Both Hunter and Holden, I've chatted with both of them about this. We don't really remember a lot of the workouts that we did when we were training for Team Invictus. We remember the chest bumps, the high fives, the meals that we shared, in pursuit of trying to do hard things. Mm. We remember the debauchery and the stupid things that we did that were a little bit obnoxious, but super funny. And I don't know, I think that's a really important takeaway. Like, don't be so focused on trying to get up the mountain so fast that you forget to pause and kind of look around and take in the ambiance, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. What are you missing by racing to your goal?
Yeah. It's a really cool thing to sit and marinate for a little bit. And because I made the reference of trying to get up the mountain, I have to ask your experience around this 29029 Everesting. That seemed like a really cool thing. And I think you did it with some pretty cool people. I actually think I have a friend that embarked on it, Jeff Brown.
Okay. I don't know if I know him.
Okay. Yeah, he shared it with me, but I'm really
cool.
interested, like, how did you become a part of that? And just for people listening, what is this journey that you went on that's a very challenging endurance adventure?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I think some of the things that I do and get to do, they're inexplainable. I'll do my best. So 29029 Everesting is a endurance challenge event that was created maybe 5-6 years ago. I've been involved as a coach for the past 2 seasons, and I will be involved this coming year as a coach again. There is 5 to 6 events each year. This company rents out ski resorts in the off season. So essentially they rent out a mountain where you have 36 hours to ascend the mountain, hike up, and then take a gondola down as many times as you can with the goal of reaching the elevation of Mount Everest, which is 29,000 feet. So a 36-hour endurance challenge that it's not a race. There's no medals. There's no first place. It's just how many ascents can you do and can you reach Mount Everest in 36 hours? And so it's gnarly. It's crazy. To give you an idea of an event, like one we do in Utah at Snow Basin, it's 13 ascents to reach the elevation of Mount Everest, 29,000 feet. And each ascent takes an hour to an hour and a half. So you have very little wiggle room to rest, eat, go to the bathroom, deal with a challenge that might be coming up with blister or your body pain or discomfort or elevation sickness or all the altitude sickness or all the things that could happen. So it's a super cool, really insane event that I love being a part of. It's something that now, my 3rd season as a coach, it's part of something that is magical that I get to do. And I feel really appreciative that I'm out there getting to help these people, 200 people at each event, 250-ish at each event, hike up this mountain.
I love that you chatted about, once again, the in-between, around the food, the sleep, the mental and emotional challenges, the altitude that people face. Because sometimes that's the lost art of what people forget about. They focus so hard on training for the thing, and then they forget about the logistics associated with them. The CrossFit Games is a great example. I mean, when you're in the holding area for a long time, your bag is somewhere else. You've been funneled to an area. Typically, bathrooms aren't very close. You have the pre-workout anxiety, so you need to use the restroom. You're trying to stay hydrated. Yeah. There's weather conditions and all those things. How do you coach some of those things? Because sometimes they're unplanned. You have to have adaptability. You're trying to foresee potential problems simultaneously. Obviously you've had experience a couple seasons now, but for this event, Everesting specifically, how did you kind of coach the altitude and the food and the sleep and the mental and emotional challenges?
So this company does a fantastic job of giving everybody who is signed up for it a training plan as well as coaching calls all the way from the time they sign up leading up to their event. So
that's cool.
We talk through with the athletes like the common challenges, the nutrition, the hydration, what to do in certain circumstances when different obstacles come up. So they have a great idea about what to expect. And like you said, we talk through what those problems are so that people can create a plan and have adaptability. I always say, like, have a plan, plan to adapt. Like, have an idea of how you want to do it and use that as a guide.
Might need to be the title of your episode.
Have a plan to adapt. Use that as a guide. But as we all know, and anyone who's been in athletics for a long time, how many times does your plan go perfectly?
A total of 0 so far.
Like, I don't know any times for me. And is a perfectly executed perfect plan actually the right thing or the best thing or leading to optimal performance?
It's a generalized blueprint.
We can talk on that all day.
Yeah, totally. I like that thought process though, because it gives gentle parameters and forces you to play within the lines for the most part. And otherwise it's just a clusterfuck free for all.
for sure.
And I think that's very cool that they provide those tools. And then what's kind of your role in the co-piloting of people, ascending and descending?
So we have different shifts, and my role is to help as many people as possible reach their goal of ascending the mountain. But often it's troubleshooting with that person. So as I go up the mountain or as we're leading group hikes, we're checking on whoever we can see around us. Hey, how are you? What's going on for you? When's the last time you went to the bathroom? When's the last time you ate? How is your body feeling? And if someone's like, I'm great, I'm good, normally we're moving on. We might check in with them for a little while, but normally we're sweeping or moving on to see if there's somebody else who may be struggling. So really with whatever they have going on, whether it's mental or physical, some combination of both, most likely, we're there to help that person problem solve.
Are you carrying like a fanny pack of like first aid and electrolytes and all kinds of things to like save the day?
Yeah, there's aid stations. So like the event is so well done. There's aid stations. There's people there to help with all sorts of different medical issues. And they have a staff there that's just for recovery. So you're very well taken care of at this event. It's not like, hey, you're out there and just good luck. It's like you're going to have coaches and volunteers and a whole bunch of staff supporting you in your efforts. So I'm out there just to help those people, again, work through whatever challenge that they're facing to hopefully help keep them going up the mountain.
I bet you leave that weekend, really exhausted, but also just so fulfilling. I can only imagine some of the intimate conversations that are had in a state of extreme vulnerability going up that mountain. Do any chats kind of stand out to you where you walked away from that experience that you're like, that was incredible?
Yeah, many. The cool thing is everybody out there is somebody, obviously. And most of the time, these people who are choosing to do an event like this have really cool stories.
Yeah.
And they're people who are like-minded because they're choosing on a weekend to go climb a mountain for 36 hours. So my very first shift at my very first event was the overnight shift. I think I started at 7 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. It was a 12-hour overnight shift, and I had no idea what to expect. But I was out there with my headlamp, climbing up this mountain, couldn't barely see anything, super rocky, crazy, but also so beautiful. And I remember an ascent with a woman who said, will you hike this one with me? It's my last one. Meaning she was going to finish in the middle of the night on the first night, which is really unheard of. Only a select few people are going to go at that cadence to be able to finish that early. But we did the whole hike together in the middle of the night, and we had just such a beautiful conversation under the stars with our headlamps on. Like, it was magical, and it was like nothing else existed. And you're right, there's a lot of very, very open, vulnerable, cool conversations that happen out there, and that's definitely my favorite reason for doing it.
And you took the time to look up to the stars.
Damn
it
right.
wasn't just one foot in front of the other.
No,
it was taken in that special ambiance.
For sure. It's really special. The locations that they have are very, very beautiful.
That's awesome. Another element of your world is consulting with brands and giving chats and mindset talks all over the world. And one of the ones that stood out to me is your chat with Assault Fitness. I've spent some time with those guys. I think everybody that probably listens to this podcast knows what the assault bike is, knows what the assault runner is. And you were able to connect with their staff and help them, understand better communication, help them play around with getting a little bit more confident at work, navigating adversities, and not just in the work setting, but also in their personal life. What was that chat kind of like, and how do you diversify your communication to like an organization, company, or brand as opposed to, athletes that you've worked with in the past?
That was a really cool opportunity that just happened recently. Their headquarters is out here in Southern California, so it's only like an hour away from where you and I live. So I know a couple of people from that staff that have heard me speak at Power Monkey, and they approached me and said, we think it'd be really cool if you came and spoke with our staff. So it was an awesome opportunity. Super grateful for them for setting that up. And largely, I keep my material very similar, and I just maybe approach it differently with some examples that are a little bit more geared towards the group that I'm talking to. So obviously, this was a corporate headquarters location of a fitness company, and they want the same things that athletes want. They want the same things that you and I want. They want to really be healthy, be happy, perform well, and continue to build their confidence at their craft, whatever that is. So the examples that I use and the way I steer the conversation might be slightly different, but largely I show up as myself, like wherever I am, and I deliver the material as authentically as I can, with trying to use some engaging and compelling storytelling and some examples that I know are going to create buy-in, so that the person hopefully can be like, oh, like not only she might know what she's talking about a little bit, but this is actually fun and engaging to listen to. And so I do it almost like a workshop style, so that they're really engaged, and there's never more than 5 or 10 minutes of them sitting there listening to anything. It's just not my style. So it was an awesome time. And right when that finished, we were downstairs in the bottom of their headquarters, and there's offices upstairs. And right when that finished, I was down there talking to a couple of people, and somebody came downstairs and was like, oh, you're still here? And I was like, yeah, I'm still here. They're like, you should hear what's going on upstairs. Everyone is just like raving about this and already like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was tearing up. I feel super like emotional about those kind of things, just hearing that feedback right away. Like, wow, I can only hope this creates a ripple effect for each of these people, that they bring home to their home lives, and they continue to focus on at their job space, workspace, so that it has ripple effects. That's the whole goal.
For sure. I'm also very curious around your thoughts on being a better communicator. But before we dive down that rabbit hole, a little thing that I want to point out that's really cool is part of being a good communicator is actually communicating. That person that came downstairs that shared that with you, had them not shared that with you, you would have never known. And that's like a little magical nugget that keeps you doing what you're doing. And I think sometimes people think they're like shower thoughts, that like, oh yeah, that was super cool. I got incredible value. But then inevitably they never really say it. Or you cross paths with somebody and you notice like, man, that performance really motivated and inspired me in my life. But you don't say it. And I think if we practice the art of sharing our kindness, sharing these shower thoughts unapologetically, like truly connecting with people, you'd be surprised how much it really helps. I got this incredible message on Instagram last night from this woman that listens to the podcast. And she goes, you find a way to verbalize things that I think about that I don't really know how to say. And she was like, I don't really know what that means, but I'm really thankful for it. And I just sat with that for a moment and I was like, whoa, I really do try to like verbalize sensations from the sauna or the plunge or from the depth of conversation or from a workout or from a past experience. And I'm not always the best at it either, but it's the pursuit, it's the try. And hopefully, you throw enough darts at the board, one of them sticks a little bit. And that one happened to resonate with her. And I just really appreciate you sharing with me that person shared with you, because that's a really special thing in this world that I think should be practiced more.
Yeah, as you know, somebody who hosts a podcast, me who does speaking events, I'm always hoping it just hits with one person, or even part of it just hits with one person, because I know how it is when I'm listening to podcasts or when I'm hearing people talk. If I can just take even one nugget, I'm grateful to have heard that person talk. And I always think like, this isn't going to resonate with everybody, and not everyone. I'm not going to be everyone's vibe. I'm not even trying to be. It's all good. But maybe if one person took something away from this, I'm happy, or I feel like it was worth it. And so whenever you do get some feedback, which again, I think that we don't give positive feedback often. And even when you get it, it's so special, like to you, it's so special to me, because you don't know. Like at the end of the day, I did my best at going out there and delivering some material, but I drive home and I don't really know. So just hearing one person be like sharing that, you're right. That's not super common.
Yeah, for sure. When you think about being an awesome communicator, what are maybe, 3 to 5 nuggets that float to the surface for you around, like, when you do these things, you're probably going to be pretty successful at connecting with that other person?
Body language is a huge one. Just the way you and I are sitting here and having eye contact and having like open body language, depending on how we were standing or sitting. So I think that's a huge one. Second, I would say clarity. And I think that you have a great gift of articulating. So I would agree with that person who wrote you the message, in like, you can take a concept or an idea or a feeling and articulate it in a way that grabs and sticks. So I think that's a beautiful skill. And I think it's tough for a lot of people to articulate what they're thinking or what they're feeling. And then the ability to listen and sit in conversation and not try to overtake it, create pauses, not interrupt, and equally share in dialogue.
That's a really good way to describe it. I think I did a post about this a few months ago. Listening is such it's an art to me. It's so much more than the words spoken. And I think the chat we had some people visiting Invictus, and I host what's called semi-private coaching in a humble corner of the gym. And I assign what's called a dirty 30 to people. And it's 30 cals on the assault bike, 30 air squats, 30 push-ups, 30 of some sort of pull, either strict pull-up, ring row, or bent over row, a 400-meter farmer carry, and then 30 burpees upon their return. And it's not meant to be for time. It's not meant to be like a Metcon. It's like, hey, if you arrive a little bit early, I'm probably going to be doing something else. That'll enable you to have a task-oriented thing to get you moving. And you can, do it at conversational pace. You can gradually increase your speed or your cadence as you go. It's also just a check-in with yourself. How do I feel when doing some of these things? Are you holding on to a triggering email or traffic or a parking situation upon your arrival? Or once you got to the door, were you able to let that go and be in the moment of like, no, this is me time for fitness?
This episode is brought to you by Mush. My friends over at Mush created an incredibly cool product of ready-to-eat overnight oats. And for those of you that listen to the podcast often, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And Mush has done just that, as their products have no more than 7 clean ingredients that are dairy-free, gluten-free, with no added sugar. Mush started right here at Invictus, as they had a vision to create convenient, healthy, and clean nutrition. And this landed them on Shark Tank, where the famous Mark Cuban invested in them. Now they're found in retailers all over the country, including Costco, Sprouts, Target, and Whole Foods. Check out my friends over at www.eatmush.com.
And what's unique is usually when clients arrive, I'm finishing a workout or doing accessory work, and I'm just observing out of the corner of my eye. But it's not observing that they're aware of. I'm not like sitting there like this with a notepad. It's humble observing, gently from afar. But it gives feedback around like, oh, that person's very talkative. Maybe they're anxious today. Oh, that person has the hoodie on and the hat's down. They're a little bit depressive today. Maybe they need a win in the gym. I need to make their session a little bit easier. And then using the art of intuition to try to appropriately, like you do in your job, meet them where they're at. But all of this comes from listening non-verbally. It comes from observing their action and then using it as data points to then build out what's to potentially come next for them. When you think about listening, what are some of the tools that you use, in sharing the art of that? Because body language is huge. The tone can be really big. The history of that person and knowing a little bit of their gentle past. Like there's so many different variables. I mean, I get lost in it too.
For sure. Yeah, I think you just spoke to a lot of them, the cadence of how they're talking and what they're talking about. Like you can get super excited or you can almost pull back a little bit. Are they being more reserved in what they're willing to share or being short with their responses? And then can you mirror, or another way of saying that is meet them where they're at. Like if you're showing excitement about whatever it was that you were jumping out of your chair about, can I also be like, yeah, and meet you there with that excitement? Yeah. So I share in it with you and you create then shared experience in your dialogue, which opens it up more and more to the possibilities of where it could go. Or if you are coming timid and maybe more quiet, can I just chill out a little bit, calmly meet you there? Just let me know if you need anything today, Bryce. Instead of trying to get someone where I am, is just go where they are. And I think a lot of what you just said was body language, tone of voice, speed, maybe what they're talking about, history, where their eyes are looking, how they're carrying themselves. And this is a practice of 20 years of really, like you said, observing and seeing how people engage and interact with other people and watching other coaches and athletes and just over time collecting more of those data points to be able to hopefully continue to build and improve my own craft.
I love that. And it's really not forcing you to fit a square peg with a round hole. It seamlessly synergizes and fits more like a puzzle piece, which is cool. When you have somebody come in that maybe is a little bit more reserved or timid, or they're coming off trauma, or maybe they have preconceived notions around mindset coaching, which they may relate to therapy and have a negative association.
Yep.
What do you do to create that safe space to then help them know that you're there to serve and to support and not to bombard or accuse or pull them too far if they're not willing to go?
I would say two things mainly is one, I let them know that. So I preface a lot of the conversation with, at any time, let me know if you want to pull back, or I'll check in with you. I'll see how you're doing.
Create expectations.
Exactly.
That's
Let
great.
them know my style, talk them through who I am, how I like to do things, ask them about their style, and then let them know I will continue to check in on them. At any point, I am very comfortable with them switching, saying no thanks, us going a different direction. In fact, I love that because that lets me know that we're doing something real.
And they're being honest with you.
Yeah. And then two, like, honestly, I try to keep it pretty lighthearted because I think anytime you're meeting someone new or you're doing coaching, you feel nervous, or maybe there's just a lot of anticipation around it, or there's, like you said, there's a lot of stories you may be telling yourself about how it could go or how it might go or what you think is going to happen based on your other experiences. So I try to just come in like really laid back and keep it a little bit light. Like, I know this is sometimes awkward getting to know somebody, plus we're through a screen most of the time. So I like air that stuff out just to normalize it all. And like, you're feeling maybe a little anxious, so am I, and just keep it really cool, super laid back, even a little playful and lighthearted.
I like that.
So that we can like ease into it. Hey, we'll get serious sometimes, but then like a minute later, we might be laughing our asses off at
That's
something.
cool.
And just most of these people are athletes. Like, to me, if you can't speak athlete talk and just jam a little bit on something or swear a little bit or like, talk about the stuff that is going on for them or the things that they're concerned about, the relatability factor just isn't going to be there. So I try to use my experience in, depending on why the person's coming or where they're coming from, to speak their language.
That's cool. The being able to speak the language is good too, because game's going to recognize game.
Oh, for sure.
They're gonna know right away, like, hey, we're from the same place.
For sure.
Which is rad. You mentioned storytelling, and I know that's a huge part of the Power Monkey Fitness Camp. What has it been like, being a part of something so special with the likes of the RX Markier crew and Dave and Susan Newman? And I've chatted a few times with Dave Durante, and he's just a world of knowledge, so warm, so loving. Crossed paths with him recently at Wadapalooza, and he's just an awesome human on all fronts.
Yeah, everybody there at Power Monkey, from the staff and the guest perspective, they're all awesome. And I mean that they're all so wise and have so many gifts to bring to this world and to help their cause. And they're all really, really loving, down-to-earth people. And so when they say family, they mean it. You get there, whether you're a guest or staff or coach, speaker, you're family. And treating everybody with love and kindness is their ethos, and you can very clearly see it even if you're not there on site. So it's been really cool to be there the past maybe 4 years. I'll be there again in a couple of weeks, and to be able to have some of those people now who I can say they're family, they're friends, they're family, they're people that I feel like would truly be there for you for anything. That's what matters, and that's what they've created. Yeah. That's
super
really
cool.
special.
Do any stories stand out to you, or did you learn any like very complex skills or overcome any fears while you were out there?
Let me think. Yeah, just even going there, I think in the world of CrossFit for 10 or so years, I knew about Power Monkey. At least, it's on its 10th year. So maybe I knew about it for 6 or 7 years before I went there as a speaker. And I built that up in my head a lot. Like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to do this, and now they're emailing me like, hey, come and do this. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm going to be speaking to the best in the world and with the best in the world. So there's going to be other staff members there that they're Olympians, like 3 or 4 people there are Olympians, and the rest of them all have crazy backgrounds and histories. So I think it was really cool my first time to be able to go there and overcome just the nerves around, wow, speaking right next to or alongside some of the best in the world at what they do. And it's still wild to me because I don't put myself there. I mean, I do, but I don't, and it's kind of weird just to think that, yeah, that was a big moment for me in just overcoming some stuff to be able to show up and speak there.
I love you sharing that. It's also different when you're speaking to a company versus speaking to people in that light that are also like, they're in the same space as you, but I don't know if I'm verbalizing that appropriately. It's different.
It is.
You know, it's like me speaking to members versus speaking with or to our staff.
Yeah.
And, you know, it opens you up to being called out on things that maybe you're not certain about, or, you know, being challenged. And it's humbly amazing, but also humbly fearful for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Once I got the first talk finished with, and I was like, oh, I already can't wait for the next one, and was looking forward to it more, and now have been for the past few years. But it's an awesome company and the camp. And if you haven't gotten out to it, like, I would love for you to go, and anyone who's listening to come out to Power Monkey Camp every spring and every fall. And this fall, they'll be having their 10th year, their 20th camp anniversary this fall, which is pretty crazy.
Very special. That's cool.
Yeah, they've created something awesome.
That's great. Pivoting just a little bit. Mm-hmm. What does cold therapy mean to you?
I laugh that this cold therapy thing has become a thing, because, you know, I never knew what really I was doing, but I always liked cold water on my face when I was an athlete. It was something that I just craved, like splashing cold water on my face. And now I realize, oh yeah, that was actually like doing something for me when I look back.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to me? Cold water to me is a practice, is another tool in my toolbox for, like I said, continuing to embody those characteristic traits that are important to me. And it serves as a very frequent pattern reset for me to change my mood, my attitude, my mindset, my focus, and steer me back on path.
Yeah, it definitely is an incredible tool. And there's so many different ways, shapes, and forms that you can use it. Maybe about a month ago, I maneuvered it into my morning practice as opposed to just evenings. And I'm not setting any world records. I'm getting in that thing, getting a quick dunk, striving for about 15 nasal breaths. It's probably somewhere between 60 and 90 seconds. I don't like being married to the clock in the morning, because then it becomes this gamified comparison as opposed to trying to get my mindset right for the day. And since I integrated that in the morning, it's like things that used to bother me in the morning no longer do. And you get to work and you get bombarded with so many different things, and it's like you're more patient with them. Like, okay, I see where that person's coming from. It almost like falls off you a little bit. And I recently brought it in just to be gently disruptive, to get out of the spiraling process. And I really do love it as a tool for that. And then secondarily, what I love about it, and I would throw the sauna into this same category, it's a connection device. You're doing hard things, but in the midst of hard things, you're connecting with people. You're getting to know them. You're practicing something vulnerable. The amount of friends that have come over for sauna chats and quick little plunge sessions and learning and evolving and striving to integrate different strategies and protocols. Everybody's talking about Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia and all these thought leaders that are integrating it as well. It's a fun experiential experiment that, I don't know, like it's funny because I'm sure social media is like tired of me posting cold plunges, and I don't care because I know it works and it's so cool. And I talk about it on every episode with every person that will hopefully listen.
Same.
And I don't know, like I'm a big fan of seeing this stuff just become more popular, and then seeing more people use it, even if they don't have access to any one of the cold plunge, things.
For sure.
Get in cold water, splash it on your face, get in the ocean, get in a lake, talk about it, see how it enhances your health biomarkers. Check out the breathing protocols that are out there, from XPT, from Wim Hof to, all the different meditation apps. It really is a cool thing that I think, yes, it's marketing and business, but I don't know, I'll shut up. It's freaking awesome.
I know. I'm literally right there with you. We got to do a whole episode
for sure.
Cold water.
Just don't make me have the episode in the cold side by side with you. It'll last like 10 minutes max.
I was gonna say too. Yeah, I started with a Tupperware moving container that was just big enough to fit my body in, maybe 7 years ago, and I just started doing it more frequently at my house.
Tupperware,
like is that awesome. The word I'm thinking? Like,
I know
like
what
a Rubbermaid.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
This style movie thing.
Freaking
And like it
awesome.
was busting at the seams and like cracking, and I would still get in there. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was like before anybody really had cold plunge, things. And then I got a galvanized tub and thought I was a upgrade, and used that for a while and brought that around to different workshops with me. And now I have an ice barrel, 2 ice barrels at my house. But my favorite cold plunges are out in nature.
Yeah.
Like you said, doing something wild with your friends or with whoever you're with, and in a safe way, going somewhere to get cold together is my absolute favorite thing. Like I use it at my house as a practice that I can obviously integrate quickly and, more regularly. But I love to go out in nature and find some cold water and have that memorable experience with other people.
That's super cool. I recently spent some time last weekend with the Buttery Bros.
Oh, yeah.
And Heber is a huge practicer of the cold plunge. And Marston will use it as well, but he doesn't seek it the way Heber does. He's like, that dude's a cold seeker. Every time we travel around the world, that guy's got to find cold. I love that. And you had a post, I think, of your top 3 plunges in 2022. Where were those places?
My top 3 last year were in Whistler, British Columbia, in this, I think it's called the Green Lake. It is a beautiful green, cold lake, and it was probably the most majestic type of place that I think I've ever been to. Another one was in Norway, just outside of Copenhagen, at this traditional bathhouse that was out on this pier. It was an awesome experience being able to go from this lead sauna, which I had never done like a lead sauna by someone. It was a whole group of us in this sauna. Wow. And so hot, so uncomfortable, but you couldn't tap out because everyone was in there together. And then right when the door opened, all the ladies like ran out and just dove in it's not the Baltic Sea, but it's right over there near the North Sea area. And I was like, oh, they're jumping in. They're 60 or 70 years old. I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. It was so cold. I couldn't get back to the ladder quick enough. But that one was really cool. And then I went to this cold camp in Minnesota last year. It was a whole bunch of crazy people. And they were carving the hole in the lake. It took them 24 hours to even get the hole in this lake carved.
Oh, my gosh.
And I had never before been sitting in cold water. And I had this excruciating, burning feeling on my arms. I'm like, what is that? And I look down at my skin, and on my arm hair, icicles are forming.
Oh my
while
goodness.
I'm watching the water freeze on my body. I was like, this is insane.
That is absolutely incredible. Oh my gosh.
Again, thankfully the sauna was 10 feet away, so I knew I would get warm pretty quick.
Totally.
But yeah, I think I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to rank my top 3 cold plunges every year. I already got some good ones this year, but I can't wait to see what's next.
That's super cool. There's a couple takeaways there, but the first curious question I have is, in the midst of doing those cold experiences, were you able to form some cool relationships with people?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I'm one of those people who will go seek it. Hey guys, where can we go do something adventurous? And they're like, oh, everyone knows what's coming. What's Dawn going to make us do? But I think a lot of people I have been with are curious, and then they're enticed because I get so excited about it, but they would not normally have been doing that. They would have, let's go to a bar or a restaurant or done something. And so after the fact, I know I helped them create a really cool memory, and it brings us closer that we have that bond of doing something wild together and uncomfortable. Totally.
And the other takeaway I'll have there, and I'll relate this to food prep for lack of a better analogy, but convenience leads to consistency. When you can integrate a cold tub at your house, it's yes, you could go to the beach, you could go seek it, but that doesn't always synergize into your day-to-day life. And so having convenient factors, whether that's food prep or certain, parameters within your life that you want to live according to that standard, the more convenient you make it, the more likely you are to abide by those rules and parameters.
For sure. Keep it easy, keep it simple.
Absolutely. As we wrap things up, Dawn, I'm very curious how you've become so confident with public speaking. I think that's the number one fear in the world is public speaking. How did you kind of practice that art? Did you ever hire a coach? Did you just surrender to putting yourself out there consistently over time and just getting more reps, just like you would share in your cold plunge teachings? Yeah, you're going to get better at this by simply exposing yourself to it more often.
Yes, for sure. And I'm of the belief that confidence is not the absence of doubt. Confidence is the response to doubt. Meaning, I think a lot of people assume that if someone seems confident or appears confident in their opinion, that they don't have any fears or anxieties or doubts. And I don't believe that's the case. I think anything that you do that you're going to care about and is unknown is going to create some uncertainty or potentially doubt in yourself. So although I am more confident at it, it's not in the absence of doubt or fear for me because I care about it and it's something I want to continue to get better about. It's going to matter to me. So that being said, yes, I have hired coaches. I've gone to Toastmasters. I put myself on purpose in uncomfortable positions and situations so that I could fail in front of others and get used to and comfortable with that. And I continue to do that. I continue to almost think to myself, how can I go show up imperfectly so that I can build my tolerance to that?
Oh, that's cool.
And that's the way I frame it now. And for me, and I think for anybody listening, it has to be something that you care more about doing than is the fear. Mm-hmm. Meaning,
the risk of not doing it is actually higher than you doing it not according to your standard.
Right. And you have to really want it. Like you have to really want. And for me, most of the things I really want are because they're hard for me. Meaning it's not natural for me or it doesn't feel totally comfortable. And so I like the challenge or the pursuit of the challenge thinking, can I overcome here? And what tools can I build on the journey of trying to get better at this thing that may help me in ways that I don't know yet? So it's more of the journey of facing the uncomfortable and the fears that's enticing for me than is I want to go speak in front of 1 million people because I have something to say. Mm-hmm. I don't really think that. If that happens, cool, but it's more for my own personal exploration.
I love that. That's so cool, Dawn. You have so many cool stories and you've navigated so many different places within fitness, health, mindset. And I'm so thankful that our friendship continues to grow and we get to cross paths and connect on amazing podcasts like this. As we wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts that you'd love to share with our community?
My final thought is I wish I didn't just take a shower before coming over here because I would love to go jam out in your sauna and your cold plunge.
That'd be super cool.
But no, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. Like I said, I went into a mini retirement from both coaching and doing podcasts. But when I saw what you were doing and I knew the passion that you had, I couldn't wait to come on here and chat with you.
I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do it again. Where can people find you?
drivenmindtraining.com and Driven Mind Training on Instagram, as well as at Dawn M. Fletcher on Instagram.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bryce.
Enjoy checking out the San Diego Wave
out
at their new San Diego Snapdragon Stadium this evening.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Bryce.
Guys, if you're enjoying our conversation today on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, thanks, Dawn.
Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset Podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's NICHOLE at invictusathlete.com.